All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about harnessing the power of your facility with floor sensor analytics. I'm Ann Cosgrove, the editor-in-chief of Facility Executive Magazine, and this webinar today is presented by Intel and Scanolix. We look forward to doing the presentation with you today and to taking some questions from you at the end. Before we would get started, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. Please note the control panel that is on your screen. This is where you can submit questions in the question box in that panel. You can send your questions in at any time, and your speakers will address them after the presentation. Please also note the orange arrow on the left side of your panel. Clicking on that will either expand or collapse it, so please be sure the panel is expanded so you can access the question box. Also, if at any time you experience a technical difficulty, please send a message to us in that question box, and someone will address it privately with you right away. Now, I'd like to introduce your speakers, Gustavo Reyna and Lori Pellinger. Gustavo is Business Development Manager with Intel Software and Services Group. He works in several vertical market segments to assure that industry requirements and business needs are addressed in delivering the solutions that provide real value. He works with facility managers, building management companies, building automation groups, and designers to fully understand the challenges and opportunities in the market today. He has extensive experience in IoT services, global marketing, and product management, and he holds a master's in management of information systems and a bachelor's in communications. Your second speaker today is Lori Pellinger. She's Director of Sales Operations for Scanolix, where she leads both the internal sales team and partner reseller relationships. Lori has extensive experience directing both internal and external teams through continual change and growth, and she prides herself on creating an environment that is focused 100% on the customer and their needs. So with that, we will hand it over to Gustavo, and we'll hear from him first. Hi, Gustavo.
Hi, thank you very much, Anne, and welcome everybody. Thank you very much for your attendance today. My name is Gustavo Reyna, and I really like to just give you the context of the webinar. And I would like to say to begin with, as you know, building automation is an existing industry that's been driven primarily by energy efficiency and by sustainability goals. As we know, in the US alone, about 30% of the energy waste comes from commercial and industrial buildings. However, the industry has come to realize that comfort and productivity are also very important. And those are factors that really need to be taken into consideration for better indoor environment quality management. So that's really what we're talking about today. As you may know, there are significant economic benefits that we can realize by increasing the productivity of people working in these buildings. And therefore, maximizing the worker comfort and productivity are becoming as important an operational goal as minimizing the energy use. And so finally, this advancement of IoT technologies or Internet of Things technologies, all of their standards and the interoperability are making the smart building transformation possible. So one important thing to know is that although initially smart buildings were defined with this energy management and sustainability in mind, today's smart building vision is really about delivering experiences to the occupants and insights to the facility managers. When a building can sense its environment, its occupant preferences, and be able to connect disparate systems in order to provide services to the occupants to make their lives better, this is really smart. And when we see a number of use cases related to businesses or to care facilities, it's even more crucial for the facility to be aware of patterns of movement or the presence of the occupants in the space, whether that is for personal safety or to provide customer workforce insights to the businesses or to the facility managers. So the industry has been adopting and integrating in diverse array of building management and building automation systems. Many of you manage such systems and the complexity of them, as you probably can attest. And these proprietary systems can drive the cost of implementation and drive your ability to have a unified view, a universal view of the management of your entire facility. And so it is this Internet of Things technology, or IoT, that is bringing that additional intelligence to these systems. For example, simple example, just connecting HVAC systems to the cloud so that you can have now new insights to do remote management or predictive maintenance or create new service models is one great example of that. And that is really just the beginning. The real value is when all of these smart systems can share data intelligence with each other to drive new experiences to the occupants, really becoming a smart facility. So as you know, the challenges to implementing smart buildings have been lack of interoperability across the systems, and in many cases, concerns about security when connecting new things to the internet. So really the Intel value in this endeavor is about driving open standards-based solutions in the ecosystems so that interoperability between those systems is possible, and hence driving the cost of implementation goes down while ensuring this end-to-end security to protect the network, the devices, the data, the occupants, and that is what really provides peace of mind for the facility manager. That's the great value for that. So in conclusion for this introduction, the IoT technologies, which really drives this solution possible, enable that seamless integration of sensors, actuators, data gateways, building automation systems, service applications, and all of that enables that secure transport of this information to cloud systems, and most importantly, to business analytics to make the facility management less complex, less costly, certainly more efficient and more secure. So that is this ecosystem of IoT solution providers who can provide market-ready solutions that address many of the challenges that you face today. And so, as we will see in today's presentation, the ability to collect this data from sophisticated sensors and securely aggregate and orchestrate and analyze this data and provide a really never seen before insight into the functionality of a facility and help you dramatically improve that experience of the occupants, right? And provide and improve the interactions between the workforce, the customer, with services and facilities. And so that is really the context of this presentation. And I am going to introduce Lori Pellinger, who's the Director of Sales Operations at Scanolix, who will tell us now in more detail about their solution. Lori?
Great, thank you, Gustavo, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. We appreciate it. I am here with David Weber, who's our Chief Technology Officer at Scanolix, and we're both very excited to be here talking to you today. So thank you again for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm going to walk us through this deck, and I just want to talk a little bit about who Scanolix is and what we do. We're an organization powered by a team of scientists, engineers, and retail experts. We help companies transform their physical environment by making them more intelligent. We do this by bringing IoT sensors and software platforms together to gather the data on how a particular space is being used. We've had the pleasure of working with some with industry-leading organizations that include Qualcomm, Sanofi, Raytheon, Dell, and many others. So what exactly do we do? We collect foot traffic impressions through our subfloor technology to deliver the analytic data that will help our customers increase engagement, decrease costs, and improve the overall experience within their physical environments. So, we know that we spend about 90% of our time indoors, and the floor is the one consistent thing from building to building, giving us a data source. Our smart subfloor makes it easy to anonymously measure usage, the interaction, and the behavior in any type of building. Imagine adding a touch screen to the floor. The Scanolix platform allows customers to gather, analyze, and predict behavior for their physical locations. We then use that information to build applications to help increase the engagement, decrease the building costs, and improve the experience within that given space. So let's talk about Scanolix Soul Sensor. The hardware used to collect the data is modular and can be connected to cover areas ranging from 4 square feet to an entire building. It is easily installed in any environment to validate the data being produced without any technical expertise needed. Unlike other sensors, our floor sensors do not gather personal information, so they can be deployed in high-impact areas such as fitting rooms, near restrooms, around key product displays. All data collected is anonymous unless the customer chooses to connect our technology with other sensor technology to identify and engage individuals. So to get a little deeper into the technology itself, the sensors are 2 feet by 2 feet and can be connected to cover any size space. We've done everything from temporary deployments to permanent deployments that act as a subflooring system. The sensor itself is not exposed, so no one's seeing this, whether it be the customer or associates within a building. No one will see they're there unless you want them to see it. Sensors can go under existing flooring, be part of a new construction, or go on top of existing floors or flooring in key areas, and they can be covered up by utility mats or branded stickers. We aren't tracking any personal information, so it is totally anonymous, which eliminates any privacy concerns. The data gathered can then be used to better understand how people are moving throughout the space, and again, can be used in any building. So businesses in any industry want to solve for current issues as well as future issues. Our framework is flexible and easily interfaces with other devices and data points that can be combined into one. Our Powered By platform gives us the ability to combine other sensor data or other important data such as point of sale information to give a full picture of what is happening within that space. Businesses can easily customize how data is displayed, consumed, and shared to make the best use of this information. In the past, we worked with a retailer that was able to use our floor sensor and data API combined with some of their social media data, as well as their point of sale data, to help them analyze which promotional offers were bringing in the most customers and which turned into the most sales. This retailer was then able to see that they were able to increase their overall foot traffic by 114%, and in turn, their conversion rates went up 10%. All right, we are. All right, well, let's get into the retail experience and what we can offer the retail industry. Retailers of all sizes want to maximize their in-store experience and create a compelling environment to make people purchase. They want to better understand how their stores are being utilized and what traffic looks like. Using our technology, the in-store behavior can be analyzed to identify patterns within the store and gain a better understanding of traffic flow and help them understand how their space is being engaged. Through the insights gained, marketing efforts can be improved, customer engagement can be increased, and the effectiveness of product displays can be determined. We can also help retailers better understand staffing needs. Do they have enough people working at the appropriate times, or do they have, lots of associates standing around when it's really slow, but there's lines of people stacking up? The point of sale system that a retailer has gives a lot of very good information, but what it doesn't give is it doesn't give what's happening within their store when customers aren't purchasing something. How often is it that someone's in there and they may come in to look at something, but they walk out? That's something we can give a lot of data to the retailers. With our intelligent floor sensors and API platform, we can also make any display responsive and interactive. We can create a touch screen by using feet and presence as the input. Floor sensors allow for broad applications for retailers to engage customers. You can change the content and display in real time based on consumer behavior, as well as tied into existing software for additional applications. All right, so Scanolix is able to help future-proof your business as well. By integrating our sensors and software with other technology partners, we're able to set up other businesses for success, both in the current situation as well as future situations. Our partners build applications on top of our infrastructure to provide access to a continuously growing list of applications. Some of the technology partners we have worked with include Cisco, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on that further in the presentation, Intel, RTT Lighting, and Real Art. Our list of technology partners and the possibilities for integration continue to grow, and it truly is quite endless. So this diagram here really takes us into exactly how we are working more closely with Intel. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that architecture. And I promise the visual here looks much more complicated than it really is. Our smart floor system is connected to our data capture device, which we call our base station, which is capturing the data locally. So if there isn't a real strong internet connection or there's a disruption in your Wi-Fi, we're still collecting that data that can be used in the future. The data capture device is then relayed to an Intel-based IoT gateway. Doing this allows us to combine our floor traffic data with other data sets, such as a point of sale, which would give conversion rates, or any smartphone data that might be collected, or camera data being kept, and it can all be kept in one spot. That gateway is connected to our cloud platform, either through a wire connection, an Ethernet connection, Wi-Fi, or a cellular connection. We have our own API product, which allows us to embed our analytics into a customer's existing dashboard so they can have all their data in one place if this is the option that they would like. But we also have our own dashboards that give customers real-time data and reporting tools, as well as triggering platforms that allow a customer to take everything from A to Z just in one platform. All right, so I mentioned before the importance of helping the retailer better understand how the space is being engaged. Very similar to online, brick and mortar retailers want to know what's happening within their space. So unique to our sensors from beacons, cameras, and RFID, we can access the path of the customer from the time they enter the store to the time that they purchase. This information can then be used to see what is driving the path to purchase, or maybe more importantly, why aren't they purchasing? In the past, we worked with an electronics store where through the data we collected, they were able to determine the longer a customer stood in front of a particular TV display, the more likely they were to purchase. Now, obviously that isn't, that's pretty easy to understand, right? The longer you stand in front of a product display, you're interested, you may want to purchase. But to increase the sales of this item, we were able to trigger the content on the screen to change, showing competitive pricing and then offering a promotional coupon once the person stood in front of that TV screen for 45 seconds. This was all done through our platform without any additional technology. In this use case, we were able to save a major telecom company hundreds of thousands of dollars by helping them optimize their floor plans. We did this by deploying our basic platform to record simple people counting at the store entrance, along with dwell times in front of key product displays. In the hopes of doing this, the retailer had wanted to do a remodel in many of their locations with this new store design. But what we were able to show is this new design did not bring customers over to the product and help them engage more and purchase more. So by doing this trial and testing this out, they were able to save themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars based on the data analytics we provided them. So let's talk about commercial space a little bit. Over the past year, we've had a lot of interest within this space. Clients want to know how their office buildings are being used, as well as how to make them more energy efficient and more efficient overall. They also want to find ways to improve associate morale and associate collaboration and just that overall associate experience. Through our data analytics, we can help businesses better understand the utilization of their building. Things that clients want insight on include the use of conference rooms. Which rooms are being used more than others? What times of the day are they used most? Once in the room, what areas within that space is being used? If they have whiteboards or interactive different training things within that space, are those items being used? They also want to know what paths are taken within the building and what areas within a common space are being used versus others. Through this data, clients can optimize resources such as increasing or decreasing the amount of conference rooms, relocating certain areas within the building, expanding a common space or a lunchroom. The possibilities are quite endless. Our floor sensors and the data API can also be fused with other applications to better manage things like lighting and heating and air conditioning. So Scanolix can provide spatial insights for intelligent operations. These insights help businesses understand what areas within their space are being used, how often, and with how many people. We can also set up different triggering scenarios. So typically what we do is we work with the client and conduct an IoT workshop to determine exactly what they want to measure and what they want to solve for or improve. Once that this is determined, then we will all be in agreement and make suggestions on what we feel we can offer, what data insights we can offer to help with what they're trying to solve for. This use case is an example of one of our customers that deployed our Soul sensors under their office environment. The customer wanted to better understand how their workspaces were being used so they could better optimize the associated resources. They were focused on the use of their conference rooms as well as the collaboration that took place within the different areas in each of those rooms. So some of the things that we were able to supply this customer was with, which days of the week were the busiest. We were also able to give them the entries by room and by hour of the day. We were able to give them the whiteboard engagements during these meetings, which really helped them determine, how collaborative were these working teams that were in these rooms. Through the data we supplied them, they were able to make the changes necessary to reduce facility utilization costs by 30%. So on this slide, this is an example of how we can recreate paths that individual people take in a building or a space. By accessing these individual paths, clients will have a clear insight on what is driving path interest. This can be done from the time a person enters a space to the time that they leave. Specific path analytics can then be used to trigger events such as lighting, HVAC, even maintenance and cleaning. With data flowing through the API, businesses can set up conditional rules and automation and optimize their operations in response to where the people go and how long they stay there and how behavior changes based on the day of the week, the time of the day, or whatever other criteria they would like to use. So this is an example of what can be developed on top of our platform. This example won the award for Best Smart Building Technology from Cisco at the VivaTech show in Paris, France last June. Here we can connect with facilities management applications or messaging systems like Cisco Spark so that the facilities team has the ability to communicate directly with the building and build custom messages like identifying how people frequented certain areas of the building. Through these applications, HVAC and lighting can be adjusted. Wellness tips can be given to employees, such as if they haven't gotten up from their workstation in the last hour, they might receive a message that says, hey, you might want to get up and walk around a little bit. These are all things that can be incorporated with our API and our soul sensor technologies. All right, so let's talk about the event and trade show space. A significant amount of our business has been within the trade show and exhibit space. Companies want to know that they are getting a return on their investment, which for those of you who have participated in or attended a trade show, this can be a difficult thing to quantify. Through our technology, we can capture key performance metrics, including booth attendance, dwell time in key areas, and path directionality within that booth. We can use this data to compare one event to another event or one booth to another booth and help exhibitors determine what is working versus things that can be changed. The data analytics we provide will also help an exhibit determine the effectiveness of their floor plan. Were there areas within that booth that few people visited, or were there other areas within that booth that were just so busy and so congested that it wasn't a good experience for those attending the event? We can also use triggering to activate a demo or product display, which helps draw interest and attention to the booth. At a recent trade show, we did a step counter demo, and every time a person walked up to the display, it counted the footsteps. Once it hit a certain number, whether it be 50, 100, 200, the person won a prize. This was a big draw to the client's booth, and it really created awareness out, from those walking past and wanting to come in and see what was going on within that booth. So we can cover a full trade show booth or just in front of key areas. As I mentioned, our soul sensors are totally modular and can be set up in any size configuration. Dynamic heat maps with real-time data reports can help an exhibitor understand which areas of the booth is of interest, where they may need more staff, or where they may need to change the booth design for future events. We can also increase booth engagement with our triggering application. The moment an attendee approaches a display, it could have a custom promo or a custom message pop up. Again, with the trade show and event space, it's about how do clients determine their return on investment, both from a dollar perspective as well as a people perspective. And we can help provide the data analytics to better measure this. So to wrap things up, we know we spend around 90% of our time indoors, and the floor is the one consistent thing from space to space. It doesn't matter if it's a retail store, an office building, a healthcare facility, or a trade show. A floor can tell us such a great story about what is happening or not happening within that space. And through the Scanolix technology, this can be done anonymously without any privacy issues, while also creating an environment that is responsive to the needs of the space. So we really appreciate your time on this call today. And this wraps up the presentation portion of it, but I would like to turn it over to Ann now, and she's going to do some Q&A with us.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Gustavo, and to our attendees. Yes, we do have some questions, and we'll jump right in. I do want to hone in, since you've just come off of it, in terms of in the commercial section of the presentation, you were talking about some of a use case and some of the data types that were coming out of that and some other projects you've done. So I just want to ask you if you can talk a little bit about, or you or Dave can talk about some of the data sets or the data types that are made available to facilities people. For instance, you mentioned length of time in a conference room or visitor paths in a facility. Can you just kind of revisit that in terms of what type of data is being produced from the soul sensor system?
Sure, I'll start, and then David, if there's, you can jump in. So we've had a lot of clients that are very interested in knowing the number of people that are attending meetings or entering their conference rooms at what times of the day. So we can give counts of people. We can also give the time of day by hour, and then we can break it down to 30-minute increments as well. We can also do path directionality within that conference room. Again, that would possibly tie into, for these clients that did, what's the collaboration looking like at a whiteboard and some other things that they've had throughout the room. Is there anything else you want to?
I mean, that's a great summary. Thank you, Lori. So in terms of like the timing of these things, we can actually get quite granular. So we can go even sub-minute if that's of interest. Although I think 5 minutes is as finely sliced as people tend to want to see it. And in principle, we can trigger live alerts for someone just came in or someone just left. We could also do aggregations on certain thresholds crossed if that's of interest, like this meeting is, or this room is over capacity, or this particular facility, be it a office kitchen or office restroom, has seen more than the usual amount of traffic. Maybe it needs to be serviced.
Thank you. Okay, and then we had a few questions around actual installation and performance or endurance, I should say, of the system. So I'll start off with how does the installation work in terms of who does it, how long does it take,
Yep.
and then I'll tack on to that if you could just talk a little bit about, is there a typical cost per square foot, if you can talk about that.
Absolutely. So installations vary, and if for a retail installation, maybe you want an entryway and one key engagement point. Those installations can either be done by Scanolix installation team, but most commonly they'll be done by those store managers because it's very easy to lay the hardware down and then cover it up with a utility mat. For the commercial space, then our installation team would be part of that. Typically for a 200 square foot room, we can take care of laying everything out in 5 to 8 hours, and we typically would go in overnight or when the room isn't being used to do that.
Okay, thank you. And as far as while we're on that kind of the physical aspect of it, we did have a question about the endurance of the system. For instance, are the sensors water resistant? All these certain things can happen in different types of facilities. So have you ever run into that kind of issue with whether it's water resistance or other types of forces that might threaten the system?
Right. So I'll take this one. So in terms of just overall force on the mats, that's typically not a concern. So we've done one of these recent trade show deployments. There was a hanging sign that needed to be put up, and one of these cherry picker forklift things drove over our mats. And according to the panel on that object, it weighed 15,000 pounds. So, as long as they were driving straight over and straight back on the mats, there was no shearing force and the mats survived just fine. In terms of water, the connectors are not water sealed, so we would have to take special precautions to keep water out. On a typical deployment, we'll tape around the edges of the mats and along the connectors to provide protection against some splashes that may occur, but full immersion is that's a use case that we'd want to take another look at if that was a serious concern.
Thank you. Okay, so then we'll get back to some of the tech behind it as well. Quick question is Scanolix compatible, or your soul sensor, I should say, is it compatible with with end users who are using iMacs, iPhones, and iPads?
So all of our communication right now is done, over basic, secure HTTP. So that's, if we have two APIs, a cloud-based API and a local API, and so any communication is done through basically web protocols, which is compatible with, pretty much Macs, PCs, Linux, everything that's out there. And then we have this local API, which you can use to get raw press and release events and what we would want to use for real-time or local triggering just to reduce the latency. And that again is basic network protocols, so no issues with compatibility with different operating systems.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I did want to address a question we had about just kind of backing it up to the Intel portion and kind of the architecture of this type of system. Can someone revisit what the role and explain what the role of the Intel gateway is? There was going from the sensors through the gateway and then to the to the end user's use. Can you talk about what the gateway provides to that system, or what that role is?
Sure, yes. A lot of the gateways that are used in this case, more than anything, ensure that the data is securely transported. So if you're moving data to the cloud or to any external system that is going to orchestrate or analyze that data, that is moved securely. And so in many ways, it's a transport layer. It certainly can be a local. So a lot of the gateways, one of their great values is that they are hardened. They're not necessarily just a PC, but a hardened gateway that can be placed in any facility. So it can be placed in industrial facilities or any other place like that. That also can ensure that you aggregate all that data, you move it securely to whatever your application is or your dashboard is, so that you can view it.
Thank you. And I have a question actually that comes from me in listening to the presentation. Lori, you had mentioned in the retail space where someone might be shopping for a television, and if they're standing there for 45 seconds or some amount of time, an offer would pop up. Is there a kind of an application there in terms of, I'm thinking about our hospitality or our entertainment venue facilities people, or even commercial buildings where they might have digital signage or something like that. Is that something that might be applied, or have you applied that in those other types of settings that might have a digital screen component?
I mean, yes, the application can most definitely be used in any of those verticals, and it would work similar. Walk up to something, right, and then it triggers some type of a response, whether it be a coupon like this person had going in their store, or it could be a different promotion, or whatever you want that response to be. So yes, within the hospitality environment, we haven't done it there yet, but we absolutely could.
Okay, thank you. And I do have one last question for you, for the team here, the presenters. In terms of kind of getting a payback, or getting a payback, and I'm thinking specifically of the use case you mentioned of the office space or something similar there. I know that's what a lot of facilities people are kind of focused on today, if they're in an office space. I guess kind of, do some of them do pilot programs to figure out, if this will be, like you said, I think you mentioned they had done some conference rooms. So is that something where you've had customers do pilot programs and then they've determined that, yes, this is a good fit, this is working, that kind of thing? Or is that something that would be potentially good for our listeners today?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. We've had some that have done full-blown rollouts within their facilities, depending on what they were looking to accomplish. But we've also had some that have done pilot programs with us. And, they've deployed the hardware for, 3 or 4 months to determine, is this something that we want to invest more money in, and bring in more data? And we've had people that have moved forward with that, and we've had others that were able to determine what they needed to determine in, a 3-month time frame. So we absolutely, to simplify that answer, we absolutely have pilot programs.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Okay, well, that's all the questions we have. So I do want to thank you for the presentation and the information today. So thank you very much to our speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah.
And I'd also, of course, like to thank our attendees for attending and sending in the questions today, and to Intel and Scanolix for sponsoring this webinar. A recording of this will be available online at our website, facilityexecutive.com, as well as on the Intel site, that's intel.com, and the Scanolix website, and that's scanolixinc.com. So thank you very much, and everyone have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.